Good morning. How is everybody? 7 ways to get on a blogging schedule. You know what they say? Amateurs publish as they go. You get something to say, you send it. And pros, write it, let it sit, read it again, and publish it later. Later doesn't mean 5 minutes later, but a little while later. So 7 ways. Why is there 7 ways? You know the rule they have online? You always have to have a number. 7 ways to do whatever, 5 ways. Because once we go over 12 ways, you don't pay attention anymore. So that's why 7 ways. Let's see here. Really quickly about me. That's how I look dressed up. Didn't dress up today, sorry. Nice weather here in St. Paul. But about me, I'm a former journalist. I now help hospitals tell their stories. Telling stories is actually harder to do than you think it might be for organizations, people alike. So I go around and I help people on how to do that. I try to help them to do it. And I call them stories, not content. I have 2 daughters, a 3.5-month-old daughter and an almost 7-year-old. They all came along from Iowa. They said they didn't want to join me here. They wanted to go shopping at the American Girl doll store or something. I don't know. Couldn't win that competition. But my almost 7-year-old doesn't say to me, "Daddy, read me some content." She says, "Daddy, read me a story." Right? So you got to tell stories with people. Rules. There are always rules. I really want you to tweet. In case you can't tell, that's me on Twitter, right here. C-Trap, follow me on Twitter. If you forget to look at me, it's also on every single slide at the bottom. That's the hashtag. It's not that difficult. MN BlogCon, Minnesota Blog Conference, right? So please tweet away. I'm also live tweeting this right now, so if you're not paying any attention to me and just Twitter, you can still get something out of the session. So there you go. If you ask me a question on Twitter, I cannot answer it right this second because I'm standing up here. I'm not that good. It doesn't work automatically yet. So if you have a question, just raise your hand and ask. This is interactive, so just so you know, I only pick on the people in the back. Got it? Okay, moving along. Those are the rules. If you have a question, please ask it. So number 1.
Can I switch your mic?
Sure.
You're fine, it's the battery.
Okay. I already broke the technology. Number 1, you have to make up your mind to get on a schedule. I commit to publishing at least once a week. So how many times do you have people say, "Oh, I started a blog or an organization. Here's my blog. It's now up. I published once, and then I don't publish anything forever and ever. And then I write that post that says, I'm sorry I haven't said anything for a while, and there's really nobody here, and I'm sorry, blah, 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 yeah, but now I'm going to do it again every week." How many times have you seen it? Oh my God, right? That is like, don't do that. So if you're not on a schedule, if you forget about it for a few weeks, just start again. Don't make a big deal about that you forgot about it. We know. There hasn't been anything on here, right? So share something that's worthwhile to share. So commit to publishing once a week, at least. Some of the best bloggers publish once a day. Seth Godin, everybody knows Seth Godin? Yes? Show hands, that means yes. If you don't raise your hand, that means no. So Seth Godin publishes like every day. And you know there's a rule, you have to publish like 300 words in a blog post at least for it to be substantial and be good with Google. So all these rules, you can write them down and say, this is now a rule. If I'm at 301, I can publish 299. Nope. That's a good guideline. Ultimately, it comes down to what you have to say. So if you got to write 1,500 words, write that much. If you can say something 150, write that much. Other than Seth Godin, most people cannot publish a blog post that's 50 words and interesting. Sorry, if you can do it, let me know. Send me a tweet, say I disagree, I can do it, here it is. And I will write you back and say I agree or probably disagree. So, challenge accepted? Yes? That means yes. Okay, send me a link. So you have to commit to publishing at least once a week. That's number 1. You got to make up your mind. We're going through these at no time, right? Number 2, determine your schedule. If you don't know, if you think, I don't have any options, you have 10,080 options. I redid the math last night. My wife is a teacher. I even asked her, is this correct? There's 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day. Is that right? Am I doing this right? Times 7, right? That's what that number is. If you don't trust me, you can do math. I used an Excel spreadsheet to double check my math. So, seriously, you have that many options. Make up your mind. When are you going to start publishing? I have 3 blogs. One publishes on Monday, one on Wednesday, one on Friday. How did I pick those days? Monday comes first. I didn't want to publish on Tuesday, so I picked Wednesdays. The other one, I'm like, oh, Friday sounds good. That's how I picked them. There's studies out there when is the best time to publish. And I'll just pick on social media for a second. In case you couldn't tell, I love social media. Even get my own shirt from the Netherlands. That's where the store is, where they do this. But there's studies like you can't publish at this time. Don't say anything at this time. If you talk about this at this time, you have the most impact with your audience. Same with blogging. Guess what? When you take all those studies and put them on top of each other, you are only allowed to publish between 3 and 4 on a Friday afternoon. That's the only time that has any impact. So forget about all these studies. Just make up your mind. Pick one of these options. If you can't make up your mind, seriously, ask your neighbor or something. Just determine your schedule. When is it that you're going to start publishing? And remember, you don't actually have to publish at that time, right? You don't have to actually write it and then publish. So if you catch yourself always writing 2 minutes before you made up your mind to publish, that is not the point of this. It's done way ahead of time. Okay, number 3, ideas. Document them. Put them on a schedule. Who is on WordPress? Who is not on WordPress? Why not? I mean, sorry. Where I work on my day job, we don't work with WordPress. And for that industry, it works. But for most bloggers, a lot of organizations, WordPress is really the best CMS to use. It's so easy. You can teach anybody. You don't even have to teach them to use it. It's like, here's WordPress, right? There's a publish button, publish. Don't say anything dumb, right? Easy enough. So this is actually the editorial calendar plugin on WordPress. So if you don't have it, if you go to plugins, are you all with me? So you click on plugins, add new, you can search editorial calendar. You can download this calendar, and then you can use that to document your ideas. And how many ideas can you put in there? As many as you want. Now if you put 10,080 ideas per week, that is probably too many, quite honestly, even though that is great if you have that many ideas. But so what I do, I go over here and I put them on Mondays, right? So Mondays, I put an idea in. Then the next idea, guess where I put it? Any guesses? This is interactive.
Wednesday.
No, the next week Monday. This is only one blog. So the same blog, Monday, next idea the next Monday, next idea the next Monday. Get it? So I can do that like however many Mondays there are in a year. Write them down. There's so many ideas of things you can write about. It's a never-ending thing. If you say you have nothing to write about, maybe you need to think about what your topic is, right? So once you start blogging, what are you going to blog about? I know they say blog came from web blog, like web diary or something. It's not a diary. Unless you're like Ellen DeGeneres or something, nobody wants to read your diary. And Ellen DeGeneres, I don't know if you heard this, but she doesn't even blog because she has more followers on Twitter than Twitter. So she claims she now owns Twitter, so she just tweets. Anyway, if you have ideas, write them down. Here's my topic. I talk about storytelling. Here are my 3 blogs. Storytelling, authenticstorytelling.net. These slides are also there. I probably should have mentioned that to those of you who started taking furious notes of everything I say, but they're also there. The video of this presentation will be up in like 5 hours because that's how long it takes to upload a 45-minute presentation to YouTube. So that's authentic storytelling. Then on Wednesdays, I have kidsandtech.net, which is actually officially my 6-year-old blog. I write them all, but they're really her stories. I just put them down for her. So she talks about anything technology related. And then on Fridays, myfitnesstips.org, which is where I talk about fitness things. So I used to play football, Minnesota, used to play football at Iowa in the late 90s. And offensive lineman, weighed a lot more, 100 pounds more, so I lost a lot of weight. And now I write about how I started running and how I lift and all these other things and how I lost weight. So that goes there. But very specific topics, right? I don't just write about St. Cade has this beautiful campus. Here's a picture, and they had great lunch at the Minnesota Blogger Conference. Here is a picture. If you didn't like this picture, here's another picture from another angle. Get it? It's not a diary, it's a blog. It's by topic. So write down ideas as you run across them. Start writing. Some people say to me, oh, I'm always behind schedule. I don't blog. I don't have time to blog. We'll get to that in a minute. But I say, well, when do you take the time to write? And they say, well, I just haven't any time and don't know what to say. And you know, first of all, you got to come up with an idea. You got to write it down, and then you have to start writing. And you want to get 4 weeks ahead, at least. So if you only, like if you publish on Mondays and you always on Friday, you're like, he's set to get on a schedule. Okay, I'm writing for next Monday. Nope, 4 weeks ahead. Some of you might say, but then how do I write about news events? Like, why would you write about news events to begin with? You're not the newspaper, right? Very rarely do I write about news events. Every once in a while I sneak one in. And guess what I do when it's a news event? Any guesses? Are you guys still awake? Yes. Okay. So what I do if it's a news event, I don't put it like 5 weeks out. I publish it right then, right? So then I'm not scheduling it, obviously. So when I was sitting at O'Hare Airport and they had that fire at the tower, anybody remember this? And they shut everything down. I blogged about it right then. I had plenty of time because my plane was not going anywhere, and I published it. And guess what? All of a sudden CNN and CBS and everybody was picking up photos and all these other things. So if it's a news event, publish outside your schedule. But most of the time you should not write about news events unless you are the newspaper or some kind of thing like that. That's not what we're talking about here. So get 4 weeks ahead. And then in WordPress, actually over here on the right, you can click the date when you want it to publish. So you can schedule it and it will automatically publish. And you can even automatically send it to your Twitter and your Facebook and your LinkedIn and whatever else there is, Google Plus and whatever else comes up next. So you can send them to all those automatically. That is a great system. The one problem with that is, when you publish something 6 weeks out, or you write it 6 weeks out and you publish it, and then it publishes, and all of a sudden people start talking to you about it on Twitter, and you don't remember what you actually wrote, so you have to go back in and reread your blog article because it's been 6 weeks, you know, since you wrote it. Very minor inconvenience, but it does happen. So, just something to do. Start writing. Get 4 weeks out. If you're not 4 weeks out, don't publish. Don't start. You can even go further. My authentic storytelling, I just finished a post for December, whatever that Monday is, December 22nd or something. And they're all just going to publish continuously. What do you do if you're like 3 months out on a weekly schedule? What might you do?
Catch up.
What?
Catch up.
You could add additional posts, right? So if I'm like 3 months out, I'm like, oh my God. I'm already going to my wife and saying, by the way, honey, if something happens to me today, my blog will still keep publishing for like 3 months, right? So that is like way too long after who knows what might happen. So I add a second blog post in the week. What day? After extensive research, I have picked Thursdays if it's the Monday blog. Got it? So Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Extensive research, seriously. You have to overthink these things, honestly. Okay, you won't have time to blog. Christoph, it's all great, 7 tips, to the point, blah, 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 but I don't have time to blog. You have to make it. I don't have time to blog either. I make the time. So here's the tips. You can blog from anywhere. If you have a mobile phone, the WordPress has an app, right? An app. You can write with your thumb, or with both thumbs, or with your index finger, or whatever finger you use to type on your mobile phone. And how many people are on their mobile phones all the time anyways, checking email and doing whatever, who knows what, right? So blog. Where do you blog from? Between meetings, in meetings. You didn't hear that here, right? You're just checking email from the CEO or whoever your boss might be. The bathroom. I know we don't use mobile phones on bathrooms, but the 25% of people that do, you can do that there too. Anywhere. You can do it from your phone. And then people say to me, but the mobile app, I can't upload photos, and I blah, 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 blah. There's 100 reasons why I can't do it. Guess what? You're looking for reasons not to do it. Make the time. If you're going to blog, I mean, you took a Saturday, right? I mean, I know there's no home games this weekend, apparently. I know that's how my 7-year-old says. Good thing the Vikings aren't at home. I'm like, how did you even know that? So anyway, glad you're all here on a Saturday, but you have to make the time. You have to make it. You won't have the time. Sometimes I blog at 4 in the morning. Sometimes if I'm driving to Minnesota, I ask my wife to drive so I can blog. You have to make the time. Otherwise, you're never going to get there. So the mobile app, really nice. Download it. It's available for every phone except like the flip phones. It's not available for that, but all the other smartphones, they have it. And then measure what works and what doesn't work. So what do I mean by that? You install Google Analytics or Jetpack or whatever, and you see what people are reading. And whatever it is that they read, you write more along that vein. Not the same thing over and over and over and over and over. That is not blogging originally every week. But you figure out what people like. So I'll give you an example. Authentic storytelling. I write about storytelling. How do you share stories? Well, guess what I found? Every time I share a personal story and I weave it in with tips, more people read it. And the worse the story feels for me, the more people read it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I'll give you an example. I wrote a headline, and you can look this up on my blog, it's on there, and it said, the headline says, stories that are similar to what we experience make us feel something, or something like that. Kind of a lame headline. But the article was actually about an event 8 years ago when my wife and I had a miscarriage. And I talked about how every time somebody mentions anything halfway negative about a pregnancy, that totally flashes back in front of my eyes, right? And if you ever had any kind of experience like it, you probably just felt that same emotion just now in the room, or if you know somebody who has gone through it. So the point, that post had like 130 likes, and not likes, but shares across different networks. You know, and so the point is, the more you can share things that are actual stories that people can relate to, the more people will read it. So I know that works. I'm not going to exploit my family or myself just to get more people reading my blog. But when it's relevant, and especially when some time has passed, I might blog about it, if it makes sense, right? So I'm going to share more personal stories. They don't all have to be bad. There's plenty of good things going on, but just something to keep in mind. Some stories, you might not get any readers. Some stories, so there's an article I tweeted earlier. So a lot of people tweet from conferences, right? And they say, I apologize in advance to any of you who have done this today. They say, C-Trap is now on the stage. He's wearing a blue t-shirt. He starts now. And then you got like 8 more people saying the exact same thing, right? And then one person says, oh, this is right before lunch, but we'll make it through it. And then another person says, yeah, I'm hungry too. Me 3. Hey, did you order anything special? I mean, it's like, seriously, people, talk about something that adds something for your audience, right? So my apologies if you did it, but my point is, I actually wrote an article, I wrote a blog post about how to tweet from conferences. In my opinion, doesn't mean this is like the gospel, but my rules of how do you tweet from conferences, I tweeted that earlier, maybe some of you saw it. And guess what? Nobody read that when I first wrote it. Like, why? I don't know, because I didn't send it to anybody who was at a conference maybe, but nobody read it, like 2 people, and they were like, good article. I'm like, yay, 2 people, and none of them were a mom, so success. But then later, there was a healthcare conference, and one of the docs was tweeting from it, and I sent it to her. See where this is going? And I said, hey, here's some tips, FYI. And she said, cool tips. And she retweeted it and sent it to everybody. And then guess what they all did? Not rocket science. What do you think they did? They retweeted it, right? They reshared it. It had like, somebody can check, but I think it had like 100. Right. Right, but but they still link to my article, right? So guess what? People started reading the article because she retweeted. It was very relevant for people at that time. So just because it doesn't take off the second you write it doesn't mean it doesn't take off later. That's why it's important to keep doing it and keep doing it. Especially if you blog for an organization, everybody will look at your metrics the second you start, and guess what? They say, how come this isn't taking off? This blogging strategy is not working. How do you know, Mr. CEO? We've done it for like 1 week. You know how long it takes to get it going? At least 9 months. If you can hit it good after 9 months, congratulations. You're very lucky. You've done something right on writing and also marketing. So it takes a while. You're just going to have to keep trying. So, okay, see what works and what doesn't work. Number 7, use the right tools. So if you don't use WordPress, hopefully you use a platform that's easy to update. Some organizations especially, you know what they do when they want to post something? They have to go into the code. Ooh, code, that just makes me feel sick just thinking about it. Code, they have to go in the code. Crazy, right? It takes forever to update their blog. It needs to be easy to update, period. If it's not easy to update, you spend more time on updating your blog than you're going to write about it. So, okay, so I assume everybody's going to be on WordPress, or you're going to use a platform that actually is easy. Jetpack is a great plugin. It allows you to share to other networks. It allows you to check really quickly. It's not quite as comprehensive as Google. The newsletter sign up, it gives you a little newsletter sign up. So if you want to say, oh, I can do an email newsletter, I don't have time to do that. Like, what time do you need? On Jetpack, you say, email newsletter. You say, activate. It's like Toy Story, right? Activate, go. But seriously, all you do is activate, and then you drag the little widget over into the sidebar, and now people can sign up. And every time you publish a post, guess what it does? It automatically emails them the post. You don't even have to do it. So I would do that. Email is not dead. Has anybody heard this? Email is dead. Email marketing is dead.
Every January.
Yeah. You know, every January, right? Yeah. Right after all the holiday sales came in over email marketing. People look at emails. I don't open every email that I get, but you know how many tweets I get? I don't even follow that many people. I follow like 1,500. And I step away from Twitter for like 5 minutes. There's like 549 tweets. And my boss comes by and says, hey, can you help me with something? I'm like, hold on. I first got to catch up on Twitter. I'll be right there. Just kidding. I don't say that. But do you know what I'm saying? People don't have the time to read all their tweets. Doesn't work. Too many. But people do read their emails, even if they glance at them. So get people to sign up. Easy enough. And it's really easy for you. Google Analytics, gazillion things you can do with it, but sign up for that. Google.com/analytics. Did I spell it correctly? I hope so. So that's how you spell it. You go there, sign up for an account. If you already have a Gmail account, they just link it automatically. And then you install it on your WordPress or whatever site you have and get going. Easy enough. It used to be you have to like copy code and put it on top of the header tag, but below some other tag. And it's like, what are you talking about? What? You know, you don't have to do any of that. You just copy a number, and there's a plugin. It's called Google Analytics something, and you just copy and paste the number in. It's like a number, and it's set up. The editorial calendar, great tool. I would recommend it. It has made blogging for me so much more enjoyable that I don't blog in the moment. I get on a schedule. I schedule things out weeks at a time, and I can read them again, right? It's not on here, but while I'm talking about the calendar, there's a plugin called Public Post Preview. Public Post Preview. And what you can do with that, so hopefully everybody has somebody who's willing to read your blog post before you publish it. And since they're so nice, but you might not be willing to give them access to your dashboard because who knows what they might do, right? You can actually send them a link to an unpublished post with this plugin, and they can read it and they can send you feedback. It's really, really cool. Public Post Preview is the plugin. So install that if you want. And then the mobile app, there's really no reason to do it. You can talk a whole hour about the pros and cons of the mobile app and a half. There's some things you can't do. You can't get into your media library. You can't, if you use like the SEO, the SEO plugin, you can't go into that. There's all kinds of things you can't do, but you can write, and you can publish, and you can save a draft. That's all you really need it for, right? If you have to later make it look pretty, you can do that on your desktop. So those are the tools. Let's see. So 7 things: decision, schedule, document, write, make time, measure, and pick the right tools. Any questions, comments? First question.
On your documenting your ideas, I have a lot of windshield time, so I tend to do that with, my phone and speaking into it. And so I had a whole bunch of them, and then this week I sat down like, oh yeah, I got all these great ideas on blog now, woohoo! And I listened to myself, and I'm like, what the hell am I saying? I don't understand it. I don't know where I was going. So the document ideas thing is just not my first thing. I don't know.
So I write ideas down sometimes, and I have the same thing. I'm like, what is that headline supposed to mean? What am I going to write about? And I just move on, right? But there's so many ideas, honestly, that it happens. But when it does happen, there's another idea. So if you have a lot of windshield time, I have no idea if this is legal under whatever Department of Transportation rules. But if you do record while you're driving, you might also consider doing a podcast while you're driving. So there's actually an app, Mobile Podcaster. It might be like 99 cents. I don't know, maybe $1.99. Skip a Starbucks coffee one day, right? And you still have 14 cents you saved. But so you can actually record, and then you can upload that podcast directly into your WordPress site. So that's another nice tool. Sometimes people say to me, oh, writing takes time. I'm not that good of a writer. Well, maybe you shouldn't be a blogger, but if you can talk, right? If you sound okay talking, maybe you should do a podcast. Maybe you should talk. You can get this app. You can talk. I would think about the idea just for a little bit, so you have some structure to what you're talking about. But you can do that and then upload it. Mobile Podcaster, I think it's what it's called. Next question.
What would be your 8th rule?
What won't be my what? My 8th rule. Well, what do you mean? This is supposed to be my 7 rules. I picked 7 for a reason. What would be my 8th rule? Be honest. Write about something that you care about. Be educational. Share something that people can learn from. So I'll give you an example. How many times can you go online and you can just rant? All the time, right? You could be like, oh my God. Parking at St. Kate's, I'm just kidding. Parking was just terrible. This would never happen at St. Thomas, never. How do I know? I don't know, but this is my blog. I can say whatever I want. That is not how you want to blog. But what you might talk about is something you've learned and something that somebody else can take from it. So I'll give you an example. I travel. Sometimes I travel with other people. And I swear, we make decisions all day long. And the one decision that's like the hardest in the entire day is where should we go eat dinner? Because one person wants to go here, another person wants to go there. This person doesn't like whatever, right? This person wants a local beer or whatever. it's like you can totally rant about that. But how can you turn that around? If it fits within your topic, you can turn it around into, here's some tips on how to decide where to go to lunch, to dinner, if you're traveling with a bunch of people. Option 1, don't go to dinner, order room service. You know, I mean, seriously, educational. Share something that's educational. Next question.
You mentioned your 6-year-old daughter as one of your contributing authors for your blog. I have a lot of contributors from a lot of similar demographic. They're attorneys for the most part. And these are great tips for like how you yourself motivate yourself to blog. How do you translate these when you have a lot of contributors who like to see blogging on a regular schedule?
If you have a lot of contributors, you'd like to see blogging. So are they actually going to write their own articles? And have they turned out okay? Okay. Same thing, you know, so if you have a lot of contributors, get them on a schedule and get people to agree to, I'll take the first Monday, I'll take the second Monday, I'll take the third, I'll take the fourth. If there's a fifth, that's going to be easy, right? Some people, a lot of volunteers for the fifth one because there's only like 2 months each year. So, but get them on a schedule and get them to agree. How do you, so if you're in a meeting, you say we should do this blog and we should do it once a week. Am I coming back? Yeah. And we're going to do it once a week. You do it the first one, second one, third, fourth, fifth. You're going to agree, right? Right away. Right away. Yep. Good. You need to get their buy-in, right? So if everybody sits in a room and nobody says anything, guess what that means? They all just disagreed with you. That's what silence means. So you have to say, sounds good, I can do that. And then give them some tips. You know, what are you going to write about? What are you going to write about? So does that help?
It does.
Okay. Next question.
So I've been getting a lot of emails from an app called CoSchedule. Have you heard of this, or what do you think of it?
Yes. So every once in a while, CoSchedule. They're also on Twitter. I think every time I talk, so I think I had a tweet probably that talks about editorial calendars. I bet you lunch, whoever gets this right, is on me. You get for free. Anyway, I bet you when I talked about editorial calendars, they favorited it. So they're always on Twitter talking about it. I haven't tried them. I think there's a fee to use them. I try to balance what I pay for and what I don't pay for. Editorial calendar is free, works just fine. There's some other tools you can use with them. So it might be worth trying if you want to spend money on it, especially if your blog does make money. But you know, I haven't tried them. But they do come up quite often when I talk about editorial calendars online. Yep. Next. Yep. Go ahead. Yep.
What do you find works best for you for like headlines or blog titles? Do you have a question? Is there something, formula or a thought on that?
The best headlines. Great question. I actually blogged about that. I can share that in a little bit if I can find it. Questions, I think they're dangerous, right? So if you ask a question and you say, why do you, how do you not struggle blogging, right? So if I were to see that headline, I'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm not struggling. I'm scheduled for like 5 months. Do you know what I mean? So you can lose a big part of your audience if you ask a question. How can you lose weight since you're so fat? Question mark. Right? Like people might go, are you kidding? I'm not fat, right? So you already turned off. So questions I think are always difficult. The whole thing with the 7 tips to do one thing or another, that's very popular and it really works online. And it works because it's very contained, right? You know how many things are coming your way. Like if you were sitting here in number 4, you were like, I don't know. And you're like, oh, there's only 3 more to go, right? I'm not leaving right now, it's only 3 more. So those headlines work. They don't work when somebody says, the top 99 reasons from Minnesota Blogger Conference. It's like, oh my God, 99 reasons. You couldn't have made it to 100. But seriously, that's too many, so it has to be pretty low. Other than that, to the point, be clear. Don't use people's names, right? So if you write a headline and say, Trap to speak at Minnesota Blogger Conference, and nobody knows who Trap is, right? Don't do that. So to the point, clear. Sometimes my first sentence becomes my headline. Don't summarize. Don't summarize your first paragraph in your headline. You know how newspapers used to do that and sometimes still do? It's a waste of time. People don't have time. People's attention span is like 8 seconds, which is a second longer or shorter than a goldfish. Either way, it doesn't make any difference. It's pretty short. So to the point. Yep. Any other, next question?
I used to use MySpace, and the thing I really liked about MySpace, they had blogs on MySpace, and you get an email when anyone posts a blog.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook and Twitter really don't have that. They have the news feed, and you subscribe to them. But I find that what I'm looking for, I have to manually look for it. I report that stuff on my blog. I wish there was something equivalent. I wish there was an app or something I could apply into my emails, my blog, something where I just have that the way that MySpace is set up. You know, anything like that?
Yep. So Twitter, Facebook, you don't get updates when.
You have to, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the news, it's all mixed in your news feed. You know?
Right, and there's no way around it, I don't think. But on LinkedIn, so I blog on LinkedIn too. So if you post an article on LinkedIn, like the entire article, not just the link, it's its own blogging platform. So what I do is I blog on my website once a week, and then once in a while, when I remember, I take an older blog post and I put it on my LinkedIn, right? The entire article. And people would say, wait, but isn't that going to hurt Google? Like, Google is going to say duplicate content and blah, 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 blah. Nope. LinkedIn is a social network, so it's not actually indexed, or it doesn't hurt your rankings on your blog. So you can do that. Sometimes, some articles I write actually get more views on LinkedIn than they do on my blog. And that's because LinkedIn will serve them to different people. So that's another way to get another audience. But yeah.
LinkedIn has that.
Yep. It's officially called, I think, like LinkedIn Publisher Platform or something like that. Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
You have to ask LinkedIn.
I don't think anymore. I think you can just, it's like when you click do an update, it says post a post or something out, you know, and then you can put it in there.
Oh, because I had to ask to be an author on LinkedIn.
Oh, that might be different. I don't know about that. Yeah.
That's a better way to link if you're now considered an author.
Become an author on LinkedIn.
You
Okay.
have to ask and they'll still let you. You just have to ask and then send an email.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Any other questions? One more question. Okay. Great. Thanks, everybody.